What is the most important experience that you've gone through in filming your documentary, or also person that has really struck you the most? So impressed you the most in order like to that mm, that thing like pushed you to like say I have to do this documentary.
I started making this film when I was 15, and I didn't know how to be an activist, but I, like many other young people in my generation at that time, was still reeling from an inconvenient truth and this sense that everything was going to go wrong and that I had no real control over my life or my future, and how frightening that was. And so when I ended up going to this youth summit in Japan, and I made lifelong friends from places like Bangladesh and Nepal, I realized for the first time that this wasn't just an issue of, oh, it's happening over there, or it's away, it's something purely abstract. It became very much about, like, my friend Abrar from Bangladesh is facing this and his life has changed forever, and the things that matter to him and that define who he is as a person are being lost. And I think that was the first time that I started realizing that the climate crisis isn't just numbers on a page. It's not just some abstract thing of carbon in the atmosphere. It really is forcing us to question what kind of people we are and how we're going to live together in this planet and move forward if we want to adapt and survive. And I realize that that's a bit of a wordy answer, but that has been the thing over again and again and again of the shared humanity that is within this experience, the shared, regardless of where someone is from, that we are all human and we're all family, and how striking that is when you're in this kind of situation and you're seeing people lose their homes and their ancestry and their future.
Your documentary in this sense is like a political act because through your personal experiences you're passing also through all the landmarks you were saying concerning climate crisis and climate crisis awareness. Also, what has changed in the years in the youth climate movement, in the way we approach to the climate crisis?
When I first started, there really wasn't that much social media. So a lot of the connecting between young people and the movement itself was done through email, was very much, it was more behind the scenes. People didn't know that there was this movement. It wasn't as in the spotlight as it is now. And so I think in that way, it's interesting to see how the movement has become more accessible to young people around the world because it is so much more visible. I think something that's really exciting about this change is that because it's more accessible, it's become much more diverse. And so we're not just having, you know, the majority of white young people in college going to COPs or going to these conferences and talking about how we need to save the global South. We're now having all of the players and actors involved in this, from indigenous communities, from the global South, from island nations, are there representing themselves. And it's really exciting to see how so many of these barriers and boundaries that we've created are really just in our minds, and seeing how easily we can connect with each other is great. It's really fantastic.
In our behind the scene, we mentioned the word battle, because what young activists do is basically a battle to put the spotlight, put the limelight on problems that we are doing, creating, living. And so
Yeah.
let me ask you, what do you stand for now, in the sense, what is the most urgent thing that for you has to be done today to get through this battle?
A couple of things jump to mind. On a personal level, I think it's becoming a lot more talked about and okay to be talked about in a more public setting. But the mental and emotional toll of being within this space and doing this work. I wish someone had told me when I was 15, when I was a kid, that there wouldn't just be one dark night of the soul, that there would be many, because this isn't just, okay, we're going out there and these are the good guys and these are the bad guys and we're going to win. And it's like everything then just works out. It's so much bigger than that, because we're essentially talking about how to dismantle society as we know it and recreate it in a different way. And that is enormous. And usually in the past with humans, it's taken centuries for that kind of change to happen. And what we're needing to do is years, not even decades of needing to make such a huge change. And so I would get very embarrassed and I wouldn't want to talk to people about it. I would just like be burned out and depressed alone. And I didn't want to share it because I didn't want to seem like I didn't have the energy to do this work, or I wasn't in it for the long haul, or that I was weak or something. And I think it's becoming a lot more it's much less of a taboo, I think, particularly with the generation now that is defining the youth movement, of realizing that we're not emotional robots. We're human beings who are feeling things very deeply. And a friend of mine said, you know, I would be concerned if people weren't freaking out, because this is such a huge thing. And in a weird way, it's a good reminder just to know that we all are within this very strange and scary situation, but we're in it together. And because of the emotions that are involved, I think it's really forcing us to have this bigger existential conversation about what being alive is, and what defines happiness, and how we connect to each other. And I think so there's that. And I think also the word battle is interesting, because I think for so long the narrative has been defined by the sense of fighting, that we have to fight to save ourselves, that we have to fight to save the planet, and we have to fight the people who are doing this and have put us in this situation. And in a lot of ways that makes sense, because it is a battle. Just look at Indigenous land defenders and how they're literally engaged in a kind of battle with police and corporations who are trying to take their land. But at the same time, I think it's really easy to see how divided we've become in conversations. We don't talk to people outside of our shared kind of beliefs or communities. And I think what we need to remember is that there isn't one magical solution. There isn't one, okay, if you do this, then everything will be fine. There's so many different moving parts involved. So for me, what I try to remember and what I try to tell people is that do what you can with what you have where you are, and that we need diversity in the movement. I at my core, I'm a filmmaker, I'm a storyteller. That's my strong suit. But for other people, you know, that's not what they can contribute, or everyone has a different way to contribute to this ongoing crisis. And within that, I think we need to remember to listen to each other. We need to remember that we're all flawed individuals and that we have never experienced something like this before. And so we need to have that level of compassion and kindness towards each other, because if we're all screaming at each other, we're not going to get anything done. We have to remember that that the only way we'll be able to move forward and create a better and more caring and just world is together. And so, as sappy as that sounds, I always remember and try to tell other people that we do need to start listening to each other. You know, even if it's people that 10 years ago, if you had told me, well, you need to go and start talking to, you know, fossil fuel industries and these people that, you know, are doing things that are messing with our world, I wouldn't have been able to do it. But I now feel like being right in this situation doesn't do anyone any favors. We have to move forward together.
to create something, everyone has to put a brick to create something.
Yes,
something
exactly.
I think that
we're not all a Greta. We're not all an activist who goes out and challenges governments, and that's okay, because if we all were, I don't think it would work. We all need to work within our own communities and at a local level, and create real change, everyday change. It has to become normalized.
to conclude our conversation, evoking one of the slogans that young generation always say, we are unstoppable, another world is possible. That part of the slogan is your documentary title, the fact of being unstoppable, of always fighting for climate justice, and another world is still possible from your point of view.
Yes, 100%. It might not be what we think it should ideally look like. It might not be what we thought we were fighting for 10 or 20 years ago, but another world is possible. And I do believe that we can create that caring, just, and sustainable world. And I think we're going to be forced to have to do that if we want to survive and adapt. So it's this weird thing of, if we're going to actually live within this new world that we've created, if we're going to live within a world that does experience climate related events on a regular basis, we do have to become the better angels of our nature, or we will there won't be anything left. We will use up all of the resources, and we will be pitted against each other. And I don't want to live in that world. And I think regardless of what happens, I want to feel like I've done everything in my power to fight for the world that I know is still possible. And I want to be the person who would live in that kind of reality, I guess, regardless of what happens.
Thank you very much, Slater. Thank you very much, really, for your time and for all your words and what you are telling me and telling us.
Thank you so much.